This is David Kurtz, TPM Media. I'm here with Dean Baker, who's the co-director of the Center for Economic and Policy Research and author most recently of Plunder and Blunder, The Rise and Fall of the Bubble Economy. Thanks for joining us, Dean.
Thanks for having me.
A lot of new news out this week on the state of the economy. Obviously, things continue, at least statistically, to decline. Is it your judgment that this remains essentially the fallout from the housing bubble? Is that what we're still grappling with?
Well, the fallout of the housing bubble is basically the story here. We had a collapse in the housing sector itself, of course. Housing construction, that component of the economy, had been about 6% of GDP just a few years ago at the peak of the bubble. Now it's less than 3%. That corresponds to about $450 billion a year in demand. So that was a very big hit to the economy. But that's just the beginning, because as a result of the collapse of the housing bubble, we've lost on the order of $6 trillion in housing wealth, and we're probably on our way to losing about another $2 trillion more. But long and short, the housing bubble and the collapse of the housing bubble, I should say, is really at the center of this downturn. And for the moment, at least, it looks like it just keeps getting worse.
Stimulus package passed the House. What is your reaction to the mix of spending and tax cuts there? Is it going to be sufficient?
Well, I don't think it's large enough. I think it's a very good first start, and it's really important that they do get that out quickly so you could at least slow the decline. First and foremost, what I think is most important in that bill from the standpoint of the economy is that it will get money to state and local governments so they won't carry through with the layoffs that many of them are planning. Many of them will have to do if they don't get money quickly from the federal government. There are other parts of the bill that are also very good, particularly the help for unemployed workers. They're going to provide health care, pay the health insurance for unemployed workers, or most of it, I should say. So there's a lot of very good things you could say about the bill. But on the one hand, you do have a lot in taxes, a little less than a third of its taxes, and some of those tax cuts, particularly the business tax cuts, are not likely to give much boost to the economy at all. It'll obviously improve the bottom line for these businesses who get them. But they're not going to lead to any jump in investment, and I don't think anyone seriously thinks that will be the outcome. So to my mind, that's kind of money wasted. The other big problem with the stimulus is it's simply not large enough. That we're talking about spending a little over $400 billion a year, and the lost demand from, one, the collapse of the housing construction sector itself, secondly, the lost consumption. We're also seeing a collapse. There was a bubble following on the housing bubble in non-residential real estate, non-residential construction. That's collapsing now. It's not large enough to offset all that. We probably need something that's at least 50% larger, maybe as much as twice as large. So we are going to definitely need more than this to get the economy back up on its feet. But I think this is a very good first step in stopping the decline, and hopefully Congress will go back to the drawing boards and work on some other forms of stimulus in the coming months to add to this.
So do the math. What kind of consumption are we losing on an annual basis that a stimulus package, at least in theory, would be trying to fill the gap for?
Well, again, go through some of those. The demand that we've lost is over $400 billion due to the housing construction itself. The amount we're going to lose from consumption due to the loss in housing wealth, and then we could add to that, we also lost about $7 trillion in stock wealth, might well be in the order of $500 to $600 billion. And we're also seeing a hit in the non-residential construction sector, which could easily be on the order of $100 to $200 billion a year. So all in all, we might be talking about replacing somewhere in the order of $11 to $1,200 billion, $1.1 to $1.2 trillion in annual demand. And we're throwing up against that a $400 billion a year stimulus package. I think we need something considerably bigger.
Is there going to be a political will to spend additional sums on top of this, assuming it goes ahead and gets through Congress in its current size, $825 billion or thereabouts?
Well, it'll be interesting to see. You have Republicans and some conservative Democrats who are yelling about the size of this, and I don't know how much headway they're making with the public. I think the key thing is that people see results, because obviously most people don't have a deep grasp of economics. They're not looking at economic theory. What they want to see is that the economy's turning around. And if you could show some things for this program, I think there will be support for doing more, because obviously people do want to get the economy on its feet. But you're in sort of a situation, well, I guess I should say the optimistic situation I don't care about. Suppose this really does turn around the economy and we don't need more stimulus, well, then I'm not going to feel a need to Congress to do more. But if this does show results, but we're still well below where we want to be, we have an unemployment rate that's, say, still 7 or 8% 6 months, a year from now. Actually, we'll be lucky to have it be 7 or 8% 6 months, a year from now. I'm sorry about that. 2 years from now, I would expect that there'll be interest in more stimulus. So I think there can be a will for it, but you just have to sort of get a middling condition. Now, on the other hand, if this just falls flat on its face and we're sitting here 6 months from now and the unemployment rate just keeps rising and rising and rising with no end in sight, even though the implication would be, at least in my view, we need a lot more stimulus, it might be hard under those circumstances to get more because people would go, well, we just spent $800 billion and that didn't work, so why would we think spending more would work?
What are you anticipating economic conditions looking like through the remaining of 2009, and how long at this point do you see the recession lasting?
Well, the technical recession, when do they date that as ending? The economy start growing again. I'll be surprised if that doesn't go pretty much the whole year. I mean, maybe by the end of the year we'll start to see some growth, but that would be an optimistic story at this point. But in terms of what most people care about, of course, is jobs. So when does the economy start losing jobs and actually start creating them? We'll be lucky if we see that before, say, the spring of 2010. This is going to be a long, bad recession.
All right. This is Dean Baker with the Center for Economic and Policy Research. Dean, we appreciate your time today.
Thanks a lot for having me.
This is David Kurtz for TPM Media. We'll talk to you next time.